This is Baron the Bear, and today is going to be a special day because not only is it my birthday, but I'm going to put out two really good videos that's going to explain a lot about the new content in the game from the update that came out yesterday. So I highly recommend to watch the other video because it complements this video, and I'm going to put a link to the next video in the description in the in the reply section below this video. So without further ado, let's go into the first videos about troop formations for the game The Walking Dead Survivors. So it's basically the easiest way I can explain how the troops work in this game. It's like paper, rock, scissors. You have 3 different units, and they all counter another specific unit. So as you can see in this chart, you can see the melee fighters go after the sharpshooters. Cavalry goes after the melee fighters, and the sharpshooters go after the cavalry. So having all 3 of those units is a good basic fundamental formation that is probably the best troops to use when you're starting out playing a game. You're not specializing in any type of military research for certain units. So and when you train, you have a building for each of the units, so it's a lot easier to fill up your marches if you're using all the units. So that's why it's really a good rule of thumb in the beginning to use all the units. I'll explain now. Once you look through this, if you want to screenshot this, go ahead and screenshot this. This is helpful, at least to understand how it works. Basically what will happen is, and during a fight, the melee fighters, everyone attacks at the same time. At least that's how fundamentally it should work, because the game does specify speed is what decides who attacks first. And all of these units have the same speed except T10. So if you're going up, you have T9 troops and you go up against a T10 player, in my opinion, I would recommend avoiding that person, because they're going to have the edge automatically because of their speed attack. Okay, they're going to attack you before you're able to attack them, which is going to basically make you lose. So if you have T9, never go up against T10. You always want T10 versus T10 when you get to that point. Anyway, as you can see, reminders: increase stats by building, technology, survivors, a clan, which is really important. Some of the research that clans have benefit your base if you're in Alliance territory. So it really helps with defense. Technologies, if you research some of the military technologies, like it recommends like fighter versus sharpshooters, sharpshooters versus cavalry, cavalry versus fighters. Now that goes in regards to only focusing on 2 units, which I'm going to go over here soon. If you have just 2 units, you can focus your research on just those 2 type of units and give you the advantage against someone who uses 3 different units. One last important tip I want to give here is troops that are set in formations and are inside the town hall will be able to defend against an attacker. Okay, but that also relates to, that's going to be the troops that you're going to get wounded a lot more than idle troops. And an idle troop is just troops that you have in your base that's not in formation. So if you want to limit your amount of troop loss and wounded, if you take all of your formation's troops out while they're at your base, a player will never get kill points for attacking your base. So during a kill event, it's going to have a less chance of them wanting to attack your base. Okay, now on for the most important stuff I'm going to give out. Now these are my opinions, but these are my opinions based on my experience playing in the game, through trial and error and finding out what I like to use for my troops in my formations. So this should give you a lot of good ideas on how you can change and do your own strategies. That's all my videos are about. It's just explaining things and information to people so that they can gather what they get from my videos and implement it to how they play the game, because we all play the game differently. So I'm going to go to my formations. I'll explain how I set this up. If you go to my first one, my F1, well, you can see it. This is an example, but this is just reinforcing for the moment. I might change that on it. But anyway, this is the basic formation that everyone should start out with playing the game. Okay, the front crew. See how it says front crew, middle crew, rear crew. That's really important. That places that unit on that battlefield with the enemy in a certain position. Your melee should always be in your front crew. Cavalry can go in your middle crew, but in your rear you have to have shooters. Okay? And the reason why is your melee is a meat shield. That's what's going to protect your range from the enemy coming at you. Okay? If you don't have a meat shield, then the enemy is going to go right through your front line and destroy your sharpshooters. An instant win, basically. Game over. You know. So the more rounds of battles you do, the more likely you're going to do more damage to the enemy. So you want to keep a good meat shield in the front crew. Rear, you got to have your sharpshooters, because your sharpshooters do the most damage. Now, if you do your research, military research, and you focus on melee and sharpshooters, you can basically get rid of the cavalry. Let me hit return on this so I can change stuff. But you can change your cavalry middle crew unit, either put it another melee unit to add extra meat shield in front of your army, or you could add another range, another shooter, and do more range damage, and hopefully you can take out their front line faster, and your melee can go and rush their range. You know, so there's a little bit of strategy there. What's convenient about the cavalry, though, is say if you have limited troops. You know, not everyone's. You know, a lot of people are free-to-play players. Sometimes you might be limited in your troops. At that point, then it is okay to use your cavalry in the middle crew. If that's, you know, if you need that filler troop. So, but probably the best outcomes you're going to have, though, is experimenting with either using 2 melee or 2 range. I'm just throwing that out there to give you an idea. Okay, now let's say I want to change my melee, my cavalry. I'm going to change it over to melee. Now maybe this might be the best setup in case if you're defending. And say maybe you got some allies reinforcing your base and there's a march coming. This might be the best strategy because it's going to beef up your meat shield in the front line. So maybe your allies' reinforcement troops can have more impact because you're not getting totally overwhelmed right off the bat. I don't know. Unfortunately, you can't watch the actual fight, so you'll never know. But you can try from trial and error. Or I could go with you know, all range if I got the troops. Now, if I only have like this much, you know, for the second unit, then I'd be better off just going to my cavalry and using all cavalry. Now, another thing you might want to consider too is, okay, which one should I use? Should I use my melee or should I use range for the middle crew? How do I figure that out? Well, like I said, maybe for defending your base, maybe 2 melee might have more of an impact, especially if you got allies that have reinforced you for that attack. That might be a good setup. What I like to do is, after this update, I'm making another video after this video about the chemistry of the survivors. So I highly recommend watching that video. Go to your chemistry. Now, if you can see here, I only have 2. I'm working on getting my alpha next. Okay, but I only have 2 and I give a buff. So if you look at the buff, melee fighters attack of survivors crew, melee fighters health of survivors crew, 12%. Okay, when it says survivors crew, that means for each individual survivor's unit that they're assigned to. Okay, it only affects that. So in this case, Abraham, those melee bonuses won't affect him because he's not in the chemistry. Okay, so he could use his sharpshooters, you know. See, because he doesn't need the melee buff, so he's not going to benefit from using melee. So that's just one way of thinking about how you set up your synergy. So maybe 2 melee units in the front, you know, of your army is the best choice, because now, you know, Lydia and Beta are getting that chemistry melee bonuses, 12% attack and health. So those 2 crews are getting that 12% boost. So that's one way of thinking. Now, if the chemistry was maybe, say, for range attack damage, you know, then maybe 2 range is going to be the benefit of using with those survivors. So I'll go over that more in the next video that I'm going to make. Okay, so I'm going to recap real short on basically what the fundamentals are in fighting and troop formations. Melee is your meat shield. You got to have the melee in the front crew. If you don't have them in the front crew, you're going to take more losses. You know, test that out. You know, prove me wrong, but you're not gonna. You know. Middle crew, you use cavalry if you don't have, you know, the troops to add a second march of either melee or range. Cavalry is fine. Another great thing about the cavalry is you can use cavalry. Let's say if I want to go farm resources. Right now I got 3,659,000 kilograms of weight. Change it all to cavalry. I don't have enough. But you can see, if I had it maxed enough cavalry, it would go up probably 300 or 400, you know, more weight capacity to carry. So cavalry is great for farming on the map, on tiles. Only issue with cavalry though is if you get attacked and you have an all formation of cavalry, you're going to take a huge loss. You know, so if you're not in a safe environment, you're probably best still using melee, cavalry, and range, in case you would get tile headed or something like that. Cavalry is even great using a full army of cavalry to attack dead bases on the map. If you can loot inactive bases, 300,000 more resources each attack. In 10 attacks, you're going to get 3 more million resources than you would have had just by using all cavalry. You know. But it has to be dead bases. You know, you can't be going full cavalry hitting bases that have a bunch of different troops of different kinds, because you're going to get some losses. And then the final one is range. Range is important because, remember, before I showed you that picture, range is what's going to take out your melee. Okay? What I mean by saying that is, you know, in the picture that showed the troop, you know, rock, paper, scissors, your range is best against cavalry. Okay, so during a battle, if the enemy is using cavalry in their middle crew, your range is going to take out that cavalry, and then at that point, it's going to focus on the front line of your melee. Okay? So, you know, your range is going to hit what's probably coming at you. So, if you have more range, then you're going to take out someone who only has only one melee unit. A lot more of an advantage. Now, if they have 2 melee units, and you got 2 range, you know, it might be more of a close battle. So, but anyway, this should, you know, give you a basic guide to the fundamentals of what you really need to understand when you're fighting. So, anyway, I hope this helped, and this is Baron the Bear, and I'll talk to you guys later.